North Korea, a land of secrecy and propaganda. Beyond its Iron Curtain lies a tragic reality for the women serving in its military. Forced into service, these women endure unimaginable hardships. Imagine an army where loyalty to the regime comes before any form of humanity. But why are women forced into the infamous pleasure squads of Kim Jong-un? And what do these stories reveal about life under his highly oppressive regime? Join us as we uncover the truths North Korea doesn't want the world to see. Harsh living conditions of the women in the North Korean army. In 2015, North Korea made military service mandatory for all women between the ages of 17 and 20, requiring them to serve until they turned 23. This policy marked a significant change in the country's approach to women's roles, forcing them into military service alongside their male counterparts. But what many don't see are the harsh realities these young women face once enlisted. Once in the military, these women are subjected to a grueling regimen that's physically and mentally exhausting. The harsh training, designed to break their spirits, leaves many women sleep-deprived and malnourished. Their days are long, filled with demanding exercises that push them to their limits, while the lack of food weakens their bodies. Many women suffer from severe fatigue and physical ailments, often going without enough sleep or proper nutrition. As a result, menstruation becomes irregular or stops altogether, a common side effect of malnutrition and stress. Hygiene is another area where these women suffer. With limited access to feminine hygiene products, many are forced to reuse pads, washing them secretly to avoid drawing attention from male soldiers or commanders. Showers are rare, and when available, they come with significant discomfort, often cold water or, as former soldier Lee So-yeon recounts, water from hoses that sometimes sprayed frogs and snakes. This environment makes it nearly impossible to maintain basic cleanliness. Sexual assault and abuse are rampant, with reports of company commanders targeting female soldiers. Many of these women face sexual violence, which goes unchecked by superiors. The fear of retaliation keeps them silent, trapped in an abusive system. For women who became pregnant, the punishment was severe. They resorted to dangerous and desperate measures to end pregnancies, including harmful physical acts like using army belts to tighten their stomachs or even rolling down hills. This deadly reality reveals the extreme and hidden dangers women in North Korea's military endure every day. Punishment for North Korean women. Punishment in North Korea, particularly for women in the military, is brutal, uncompromising, and often arbitrary. The country operates under a strict code of loyalty to the regime, and any perceived disobedience, no matter how small, can lead to severe consequences. The punishment system is designed to maintain absolute control, using fear and intimidation to keep citizens, especially women, in line. For women in the military, offenses like failing to meet physical expectations, not following orders, or even expressing dissent are met with harsh punishment. The most common form of punishment is physical abuse. Female soldiers may be subjected to beatings and other cruel punishments, such as being forced to stand under the scorching sun for hours, dressed only in their underwear. In addition, they may be forced to submerge their faces in water for extended periods, enduring this torment as a brutal reminder of the regime's unforgiving nature and the constant threat of punishment for even the smallest transgression. These punishments are often carried out publicly as a way to set an example and intimidate others. The fear of these brutal consequences keeps many women silent, even in the face of horrific mistreatment. Women who break the regime's strict rules may also face confinement in labor camps, where conditions are far worse. Here, women endure unimaginable hardships, long hours of backbreaking work, inadequate food, and little to no medical care. Those who are deemed to have dishonored the regime or its leaders might also be subjected to psychological torture, including forced confessions or being made to watch the punishment of others. In some cases, women who become pregnant out of wedlock or show any signs of rebellion against the system are forced to undergo forced abortions. These procedures are carried out in secret, often with little or no medical care, and the women are punished for the mere act of becoming pregnant. The threat of these severe punishments is a constant presence presence for women in North Korea, creating an atmosphere of fear, helplessness, and oppression. Their basic human rights are stripped away, and they live under the constant shadow of potential retribution. So, what happens to the women who never get mobilized to the army at all? Well, let's dive into that next. Traffic ladies. In North Korea, women who are not mobilized for military service are often assigned to roles that reinforce the regime's image of control and discipline. One of the most visible and controversial roles these women may take on is that of traffic ladies. These women, typically chosen from urban centers, are tasked with directing traffic at major intersections in cities like Pyongyang. At first glance, it may seem like a normal job, but there is a deeper, more symbolic purpose behind it. The role of traffic ladies is not just about regulating traffic, it's about projecting an image of North Korea's power, discipline, and orderliness. Traffic ladies stand at major road junctions, often wearing crisp, state-approved uniforms and sporting perfectly styled hair. Traffic ladies are selected from young women, often with attractive appearances, and they are seen as a sort of living showcase of the regime's idealized image of women. Many reports suggest that in reality, traffic control is done by traffic lights or other automated systems, with the women's primary role being to enhance the regime's public image. Their presence serves to reinforce the control and surveillance that defines North Korean life. For many of these women, the position is a far cry from autonomy, and the impact is one of objectification and subjugation, with little real power or influence over their environment. While the traffic ladies face exhaustion, emotional strain, and physical fatigue, their reality is less harsh than the darker fate of the women we are about to reveal next. Pleasure squads. The pleasure squad, traditionally referred to as Kipumjo, is one of North Korea's most disturbing secrets. A group of young women who are believed to be virgins are forcibly recruited to serve the regime's top officials, including the country's leader, Kim Jong-un. The women chosen for this role are typically selected from the ranks of the military or high schools, with the government handpicking those who meet certain physical criteria, youth, beauty, and often a lack of family connections that could protect them from such a fate. These women are not only tasked with providing companionship, but also become victims of sexual exploitation. The pleasure squad's role is to fulfill the personal desires of Kim Jong-un and other high-ranking officials who use them for their own pleasures, often at the cost of the women's dignity and autonomy. Women in the pleasure squad are expected to be available at any time, often confined to luxury villas or secluded compounds where they are at the mercy of the regime's elite. The fear of punishment or retaliation keeps them silent, as disobedience or attempts to escape could lead to imprisonment or even execution. Members of the pleasure squad live a life of constant fear. While they may be given privileges like better food and housing compared to the average citizen, these benefits come with a horrific price. Their bodies and minds are exploited by those in power. Many of these women are forced into these roles at a young age and are essentially stripped of their agency. For the women in the pleasure squad, their lives are defined by a brutal, unrelenting system where they are nothing more than tools for the state's leaders. The existence of the pleasure squad reveals a dark, hidden side of North Korea's authoritarian rule, where even the most intimate aspects of personal life are controlled and manipulated by those in power, with no regard for the well-being of the women involved. While women around the world are often assigned less hazardous tasks, in North Korea, it's a completely different story. Let's take a look at the dangerous and grueling duties women are forced to endure. Gendered labor assignments for women in the North Korean army. While men in North Korea are typically assigned more physically demanding and combat-oriented roles, women in the military are often relegated to duties that, although not directly combat-related, can be just as dangerous and physically taxing. One of the most hazardous tasks assigned to women in the North Korean army involves manual labor. Women soldiers are often tasked with digging trenches, carrying heavy equipment, and performing grueling construction work, all in harsh, outdoor conditions conditions. These duties can take a severe toll on their bodies, as they are not provided with the same level of physical training or equipment as their male counterparts. The tasks are not only physically demanding, but also expose the women to environmental dangers like extreme weather, lack of proper shelter, and inadequate safety measures. In addition to the manual labor, women in the North Korean army are also responsible for domestic chores that are considered essential for maintaining the daily operations of the military. These tasks include cooking, cleaning, and managing the barracks, responsibilities from which male soldiers are exempt. Women must maintain the cleanliness of the military quarters, prepare meals for their comrades, and take care of other housekeeping duties, all while enduring the physical toll of their regular military duties. These expectations reflect a deeply ingrained belief that women are meant to serve in supportive roles rather than take on the frontline responsibilities of their male counterparts. Women soldiers are also often tasked with hazardous duties like handling weapons and ammunition, tasks that involve a high degree of risk. Given the lack of proper training and protective gear, accidents are common. The heavy reliance on women to perform such tasks while limiting their access to combat training not only places them at great risk, but also reinforces the patriarchal structure that devalues their contributions to the military effort. In a society that places little value on the safety or well-being of women, the gendered labor assignments in the North Korean army serve as a stark reminder of the country's deeply entrenched gender inequality. These women are left to bear the brunt of dangerous tasks, enduring both physical and emotional hardship without the recognition or protection they deserve. You might think that once women are demobilized, they would finally get a break and find some peace, but the harsh reality is far from that. What cruel fate awaits them after leaving the army? Let's uncover what happens next. Forced marriages and sex trafficking. After demobilization, after women leave the North Korean army, their lives don't get much easier. One of the most common fates they face is forced marriage. In a regime where personal autonomy is severely restricted, the state often controls the futures of former soldiers. Many women are forced into marriages with high-ranking officials or military officers, effectively continuing their roles as tools of the regime. These marriages, arranged with little to no input from the women themselves, are often politically motivated, designed to strengthen the regime's control over military and civilian sectors. Women in these marriages are expected to uphold the image of loyalty to the state, often at the expense of their own desires and freedom. Demobilization from the military doesn't guarantee a return to normal civilian life for many women. Instead, they often face the same pressures and exploitative conditions they experienced in the army. For some, leaving the military simply means being reassigned to another form of servitude, whether in government offices or as part of the state's surveillance apparatus. They may still be monitored, restricted in their movements, and required to fulfill other duties without question. If women try to escape this rigid system, they face grave consequences. Many are forced to go back to the labor camps or face public punishment. For those who manage to flee the country, life as a defector is filled with immense challenges. North Korean defectors, especially women, are vulnerable to human trafficking, exploitation, and violence, adding another layer of suffering for those trying to escape the clutches of the regime. The cycle of oppression for these women is unrelenting, whether in the military or after they leave it. After demobilization, many North Korean women also face the chance of being trafficked into the sex trade, particularly in China, where they are sold into forced prostitution. These women, often lured by the promise of a better life, are exploited and forced into sexual servitude, with little hope of escape. Reports from human rights organizations and defectors have highlighted this dark trade, revealing how these women are victimized by both the North Korean regime and traffickers across the border. After experiencing the horrors of forced marriages and harsh lives post-demobilization, many women are left with little hope for change. But what if we told you that North Korea has worked hard to create an illusion of equality? Let's take a closer look at how the regime deceives the world into thinking that both men and women are truly equal. Creating the illusion of equality. North Korea has long promoted the illusion of gender equality, with state propaganda showcasing women as strong, equal partners in the country's workforce, military, and leadership. Posters, speeches, and educational materials paint a picture of women serving alongside men in building the nation, participating in labor and military duties as equals. The government insists that all citizens, regardless of gender, are united under the regime's goals, with women supposedly enjoying the same rights and opportunities as their male counterparts. However, this is far from the truth. Beneath the glossy surface of equality, the reality for women in North Korea is one of severe repression and inequality. While women are expected to perform the same duties as men in the army, they are given far fewer rights and are often relegated to menial, hazardous tasks. Despite the state's claims of gender parity, women face relentless sexual violence, forced marriages, and exploitation that men are largely shielded from. The government uses this illusion to maintain control, presenting a facade of fairness while simultaneously reinforcing a patriarchal structure where women are treated as tools of the state, their rights systematically stripped away. While North Korea may claim gender equality, the reality is far different. The government controls not just their image, but also the career paths women are forced to follow. No career choices for Korean women. In North Korea, women are not afforded the luxury of choosing their own careers. The country's authoritarian regime dictates every aspect of their lives, leaving little room for personal autonomy or individual aspirations. For most young women, the idea of pursuing a career based on their own interests is simply out of reach. The mandatory military service policy strips away their agency, pushing them into the military as a default path. Those who are not compelled to serve in the army often find themselves confined to rigid career options controlled by the state. For women who are not drafted into the military, the available career choices are limited and heavily influenced by the regime's goals. Many women are directed toward jobs in labor camps, agriculture, or the service industry, such as working in factories or as low-level government employees. These roles are often menial, requiring physical labor or administrative tasks that offer little chance for advancement or fulfillment. Even in these positions, women face extreme limitations. Subjugated to strict rules and harsh working conditions, they have little control over their lives or their futures. The lack of career options has an impact on the lives of these young women. Their potential is stifled as they are relegated to roles dictated by a regime that cares more about maintaining control than fostering individual growth. Many women are forced to follow paths that lead to harsh labor, sexual exploitation, or even the military, leaving them with no chance to explore their dreams or contribute to society in a meaningful way. Not only are women in North Korea denied the freedom to choose their careers or dreams, but they are also controlled when it comes to how they care for their own bodies. If you think that's harsh, what you're about to learn next will leave you shocked. Beauty standards for Korean women. In North Korea, beauty standards for women are tightly controlled and heavily influenced by the regime's rigid, idealized image of what women should represent, a blend of loyalty, physical appearance, and purity. The government enforces these standards as a way of presenting women as symbols of the nation's strength and discipline. Women are expected to maintain modest, neat appearances with a focus on traditional, conservative beauty. For many, this means maintaining a specific body shape, adhering to strict grooming standards, and following a prescribed style of dress that aligns with the regime's ideals of propriety. In the military, these beauty standards are even more rigid. Female soldiers are expected to present themselves in a way that reflects the strength and unity of the nation. Their uniforms must be impeccably neat, and they are held to strict standards of personal hygiene and physical fitness. Women who do not conform to these standards may face harsh judgment, ridicule, and even punishment. Physical appearance is often tied to their perceived loyalty to the regime. Those who do not maintain a certain standard may be seen as disrespectful or disloyal. For women who are not in the military, societal expectations around beauty remain just as strict. A woman's value is often tied to her physical appearance, and those who do not meet these standards may face discrimination or social exclusion. The impact of these beauty standards can be profound. Women who fall short of these expectations may struggle with feelings of inadequacy, social alienation, or even fear of punishment. These beauty standards serve to reinforce the regime's control over women, limiting their personal freedom and defining their worth based on superficial traits rather than their true abilities or character. For many, this creates a life of constant pressure to conform, with little room for self-expression or individuality. While the government imposes strict beauty standards, it doesn't stop there. Every aspect of a woman's life is scrutinized. From what they wear to how they live, the government's close monitoring is constant. And as you'll see next, this control extends far beyond what most could imagine. Close monitoring from the government. In North Korea, the government's control over its citizens is all-encompassing, especially for women. Every aspect of their lives, including their appearance, is closely monitored to maintain conformity to the regime's ideals. For women, this includes restrictions on clothing, makeup, and even hairstyles. Until recently, wearing jeans was considered a taboo, as it symbolized Western culture, which the regime fiercely opposes. Instead, women are expected to wear modest, state-approved outfits, often traditional, drab colors like brown, black, or gray. Fashion choices are restricted, and the government controls what is deemed acceptable, leaving little room for personal expression. Makeup, which is a personal choice, is also heavily regulated. Women are only allowed to wear minimal makeup that adheres to state-approved guidelines, limiting their options and stifling individual creativity. Cosmetics are seen as a luxury, and only a few brands are considered acceptable. Wearing excessive makeup or a red lipstick or anything deemed too fashionable is often seen as a sign of disloyalty to the regime. The government monitors women's behavior even further through the surveillance of their eating habits. Public displays of food consumption are often scrutinized to ensure that citizens are not indulging in anything that could be seen as excessive or out of line with the government's emphasis on modesty. Special rations are given to those in the military, but they are often meager, contributing to the malnutrition and exhaustion many women face. There is no freedom to choose one's own lifestyle, career, or even diet. Everything is dictated by the regime. This tight control over personal choices creates an environment where women have little to no freedom, constantly monitored and restricted in ways that leave them without the ability to express their true selves or live without fear of punishment. The effects of this relentless surveillance are deeply stifling, leaving women trapped in a system that denies them autonomy in nearly every aspect of life. All these and many more are the realities that North Korea doesn't want you to see. It's a reality hidden behind North Korea's illusion of equality, where women's rights are systematically stripped away in the name of control. What the world sees is only a fraction of the truth, and what these women endure goes far beyond what most could ever imagine. Also, now it becomes clear why the government channels so much into its military, ensuring dominance and control seems to come with significant advantages for maintaining their grip over the nation. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching.